Hey good people, now we're here from the overclocker as usual. Alright then, it's been about 8 months since I looked at the Arctic Cooling Liquid Freezer 3 AIO, and in fact it's the last AIO I actually looked at. And now, I'm fortunate enough to have with me the Pro version, and it, by and large, looks the same with subtle changes here and there. But these changes are worth talking about, especially considering how much the AIO landscape has changed in that time. Before I go on, let's talk about pricing as usual. Woodware currently has this unit for $2,800, while it's just $93 on Amazon, meaning it's actually cheaper than the non-Pro model was when I initially tested it last year. And I'll tell you right now, this is incredible value for the performance that you get. And in fact, it'll be tough for me to recommend anything else at this price point, or perhaps at even a higher one as well. Let's briefly touch on what the Pro model brings to the table. So, as the name suggests, you're getting a 360mm radiator, for one that's 38mm thick, which is noticeably thicker than the 27mm job you get on most AIOs. That extra surface area gives it more thermal headroom and naturally is part of what makes it such a capable cooler. The pump block, as with the previous model, has an integrated VRM fan, a little blower style unit that actively cools the motherboard's power delivery area. And yes, it actually does help. So, depending on your setup and your particular motherboard, it can lower VRM temps by around 10 to 15 degrees, apparently at least, which can be important if you're pushing something like a Ryzen 9 9950X or an Intel Core i9-14900K on a board that's on the budget to entry-level side. As for the fans that Arctic has paired with this AIO, they are 120mm PWM-controlled ARGB units. They are pre-installed, of course, and that makes it a lot simpler to install. With that, you also get a small tube of MX6 thermal paste as before. And yes, the custom contact frame for Intel units is mostly appreciated because it is, I believe, part of what makes this cooler so efficient. So remember that little VRM fan I was telling you about that's built into the housing? It might seem like a gimmick, but I'm telling you again, this actually isn't. So most AIOs actually don't move any air around the CPU socket. And while modern VRMs are efficient, especially on boards such as the one I used for this one, which is the ROG Maximus Z890 Hero BTF, they still benefit from this airflow, especially on high-end boards pushing heavy power draw. I saw, for instance, temps drop by around 3 to 4 degrees under sustained loads, which is negligible on such a motherboard, but as stated earlier, could be the difference between thermal throttling and stable performance on an entry-level board. It's a subtle detail, but one that speaks to Arctic's design philosophy. Now, compared to the Montech Hyperflow Silent 360mm, the closest competitor I had on hand, the Liquid Freezer 3 Pro pulls ahead. It runs cooler across the board, whether you're looking at heavy multi-threaded loads such as in Cinebench or OCCT, or long gaming sessions. Under sustained loads, we're looking at a delta of around 2 to 3 degrees between the LF3 Pro and the Hyperflow Silent 360. That might not sound like much, but if you're dealing with a high core count CPU, every degree is going to count. In real-world use, this means we're getting better sustained boost clocks. On something like the Core Ultra 9 285K, I saw better peak boost clocks and fewer frequency dips under all-core loads like OCCT. And while that may not make a huge difference for casual gaming, if you are rendering, compiling, or running simulations, it does actually add up. The Pro unit is also marginally quieter than the Montech unit, at least in some situations. At the default fan curve, it hovered at around 38 decibels, while the Hyperflow Silent hit 39 to 40. But more importantly, the Arctic's noise signature is more tolerable. Even at full tilt, the 57 decibels it produces is a lower pitched hum compared to the Montech's sharper tone. It's not just about the numbers, is basically what I'm saying to you. So the default fan curve behavior and noise profile is actually what matters more here. The Arctic unit wins even by the narrowest of margins. The one thing I appreciate about Arctic cooling is that they don't follow every trend, for better or for worse. There's no proprietary software here, no RGB controller ecosystem trying to upsell you, it's not flashy, and I think that seems intentional, to be honest. They're focused on thermals, acoustics, and value, which is rather obvious. When other brands try and push bells and whistles, Arctic Cooling seems to be asking you, will this make the cooler better? And the kind of focus here is rare, especially at this price point. Build quality, of course, remains excellent, something I highlighted before. The machining on the block is solid, cabling is neatly wrapped up, and the unit feels premium. The version I had in for testing was black, and that actually worked out brilliantly as it contrasts very well with the white Montech HSO2 case I tested it in. Now, if you pair this cooler with the motherboard I used, once again the Maximus Z890 Hero BTF, and the ROG Strix GeForce RTX 4080, it makes for a clean, intentional, black and white contrast build. If you already own the original Liquid Freezer 3, upgrading to the Pro model is not necessary. But if you are coming from an older or more budget AIO, especially something from 2 years ago or more, this could be a very real upgrade for you. That said, I'm still not thrilled about the wiring, in as neat as it is. Even though Arctic wraps the cables up nicely, it's not as clean as the unified setups you get with the likes of Corsair's IQ Link or Lian Li's fan systems. And because of how thick the radiator is, you don't get much flexibility with installation orientation. For instance, in a case like the HSO2, you're forced to mount it one way, tubing out the back. A modular cable system or cleaner interconnects would have alleviated this. Now, I wanted to mention the included contact frame that helps with mounting pressure on Intel systems. Installing it means removing the ILM and working with an exposed socket. It's not a difficult thing to do, but it does expose your CPU socket to some additional risk, especially if you swap out CPUs often. Still, for a perfect mount, I think it's worth it. And yes, of course, compatibility-wise, it covers both AM4 and AM5, LGA 1700 and LGA 1851. Now, what I like about Arctic Cooling is that they're not trying to win you with RGB colors, aesthetics, or other things that people have perhaps called gimmicks. There's no companion software, no bloated control panels, just solid engineering. It's functional, focused, and refined. The kind of cooler that speaks to people who care more about numbers than the lighting effects. Of course, some people do care about aesthetics and integrated control software, which are important in their own right. Because if you're dealing with a clean build with minimal visible cables or what have you, everything synchronized via one app, something like the Corsair IQ system still may be more appealing to you than what we have here. However, you're paying a lot more for that. But if your priority is pure performance, cooling consistency and value, this Arctic cooling unit makes more sense and I dare say, probably unbeatable. All in all, this is probably the best performing AIO I've used thus far. Unless you're chasing ultra clean wiring or need support for legacy platforms, there isn't much out there that's going to be better for you for this price point or perhaps even higher. The Liquid Freezer 3 Pro is extremely hard to beat. That said, if you want to see how the original Liquid Freezer 3 performed, check out my previous review on that unit. But until the next time, please do take care of yourselves, guys, and I'll see you on the flip side. Peace.